Welcome back to Next Dev. So excited that you're here. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you are maybe considering joining the software development community and becoming a software developer yourself. So it's a pretty common question that I get very often from friends, family members. Hey, I'm interested in making a career change. I'm thinking about becoming a software developer. What do I do, right? What should I do? Should I go to a boot camp? Should I go to college? And so I wanted to make a video on the topic and just give you 10 tips or 10 steps that you can take to at least start the journey of becoming a software developer. So let's get right into it. So the first one is don't get overwhelmed. There is a lot out there. There are a ton of boot camps out there. There are a ton of college courses out there just in terms of like the software development ecosystem, right? There are so many tools, so many programming languages, so many concepts to grasp. My first tip to you is don't get overwhelmed and let your curiosity guide you in terms of what you're going to spend your time learning and mastering and leveling up on, right? It is vast. The software development ecosystem is extremely vast. Even I, have doing this like over 13 years. I don't have mastery over everything. Like I am not a C++ developer, just not, right? I could become one, but I haven't dedicated the time to it. So I would just say don't get overwhelmed. Just stay calm. You'll learn it. It's just about immersion. It's about time spent learning the trade and learning the tools and the languages. And if you dedicate yourself, you will become a software developer. So step number 2, find free learning resources and learn the fundamentals. There are a plethora of free learning resources out online. There are free tutorials, there are free courses, there are free, you name it, resources out there where you can step by step learn the fundamentals of being a software developer. So what are the fundamentals? That's going to take us to step 3, HTML and CSS. Now, if you talk to a senior dev and you talk about HTML and CSS, like the eyes roll in the back of their head and they go like, oh my God, I learned this like in kindergarten, right? But learning these two things is going to be a great introduction into software development because it's going to teach you how to write code, how to understand how code kind of works, like what is code, and then how to make things visually appear on a web page, right? So every website you've ever been to has HTML and CSS. HTML is what is on the page. CSS is what does that element look like on the page, right? So if there's a button, HTML, you're going to declare the button in HTML code, and CSS, you're going to decide how that button should be presented. What color should it be? What font should it be? Where should it be on the screen? So learning those two things is going to be the first fundamentals that you're going to want to learn if you're going to want to become a software developer. If you learn those things, then chances are you can learn all of the other more advanced concepts and advanced programming languages, right? JavaScript would be the next one. I would say if you're going to learn HTML, CSS, the very next one I would recommend is learning JavaScript, but learn those fundamentals. Number 4, go to YouTube University. I call it YouTube University because when I first started software development, that's how I learned a lot of stuff. I would go look up YouTube videos, I would get tutorialized, and I would go through those tutorials step by step and like put into practice what that content creator was saying, and like that taught me a lot, right? And I was able to really accelerate my learning that way without spending a fortune on courses and video, courses and programs and stuff. So I definitely recommend you find some YouTube content creators who are going to teach the basics of web development or software development, and go to YouTube University. Make it a point to make it part of your daily schedule to go learn through YouTube. Step number 5 is online paid tutorials. So let's fast forward a little bit. Let's say you've been playing with HTML, you've been playing with CSS, maybe JavaScript, maybe you've done quite a few tutorials on YouTube. You're starting to grasp the fundamental concepts of like what is code, how does it work, how do I write it, what tools do I use. At that stage, I would recommend an online paid tutorial. Reason being is because typically those paid tutorials are going to go a lot more in depth, right? So those paid courses like on Udemy, for example, Udemy is a great resource for this. Consider taking like maybe a junior JavaScript course on Udemy. So consider paid resources too. I mean, free resources are great, but those paid ones are also great too. And a lot of the times they're not very expensive at all. Sometimes you can take an entire course on JavaScript and become like an expert in JavaScript in like $20 or less. So definitely recommend that. Number 6 is boot camps. So provided you've kind of gotten the fundamentals under your belt, you have enough experience where you can at least create something, and maybe you can't create like the Taj Mahal, but you can create like a simple demonstratable like web application or mobile application or program, right? It's at that stage where I definitely recommend that you consider maybe going to a boot camp. I have some content on this elsewhere, like in my Stan store, but there's kind of two paths you can take, right? You can go to college and get educated through college. You can take the boot camp route. And then there's a third, which is the route that I took, which is just self-education. They all have their pros and cons, but I do recommend, if you want to become a software developer, the least expensive route with some formal training and certification would be through a boot camp. There are many boot camps out there. You're going to have to do the research on which one's right for you, but I definitely recommend you consider that, because that boot camp is going to be an accelerated crash course, and by the end of that boot camp, you should be in a position where you are somewhat workforce ready, i.e., you at least have the skill sets to play the role as a junior developer on a contract or on a job, right? So number 7 is going to be resume and portfolio sites. So you definitely need to have some sort of resume. You need to have some sort of portfolio that you can show and you can demonstrate the work that you've done. So your portfolio could be a website that you create that maybe links to other things that you've created as like portfolio projects, right? Maybe one of those portfolio projects is a website that you made. Maybe it is a Node.js program that is going to loop over a CSV file and update a database. It could be anything. There are a ton of examples out there. If you look at other software developers, you'll see their portfolio sites, and then maybe you can get some inspiration on what your portfolio site should include, right? So you need to position yourself to be eligible to be hired or contracted for work, right? So definitely work on that resume and portfolio as step number 7. Number 8, land your first freelance gig. So I'm assuming you've gone through the formal training, you've got enough under your belt, you can produce something using code, using software development. At that stage, I really recommend starting the process of soliciting yourself for work opportunity, and that would be basically trying to land your first freelance gig. That freelance gig could be like, hey, my mom owns a pet store, and mom, I would like to create a web app or a website for your pet store. Or it literally could be, we're going to go on Fiverr, we're going to go on Upwork, and we're going to create a profile, and we're going to find something very easy, not a big project. We're going to find a very small project, and we're going to try to do that project and get paid for that project, right? This is a big step for confidence building, number 1, and number 2, this is a big step for you learning how to sell yourself and learning how to sell your expertise. And I definitely recommend that. Landing some sort of freelance gig is a good idea. Other reason why that is a big recommendation is because it's really hard out there for junior devs right now. There are many junior devs, and unfortunately, there's not a ton of job positions opening for junior devs. So the junior dev market is very saturated at the moment. You learning how to freelance is a great way for you to kind of get a competitive edge and still maybe collect some dollars as a software developer. But that work experience is super important. You know, you can spend all day in your office, in front of your computer, going on tutorials, learning how to code, and that's all fine and dandy. But the only reason why you chose to take this path is probably because you want to make a successful career out of it, and that's going to require you getting paid for your time, right? You freelancing, if you land those opportunities, it's going to give you a chance to basically exercise what you know and put it into practice, and it's going to create pressure. And I like to say that pressure creates diamonds and burst pipes, right? So you putting pressure on yourself to go freelance and actually being accountable for delivering the goods that you're being paid for, it's going to be a great experience. It's going to be a great exercise for you to go through. And that's how I started, and I have to recommend that as step number 8. Step number 9 would be actually seeking legitimate job opportunities or even internships or anything that's going to get your foot in the door with a company that is basically selling software services or projects, right? So my company, Kairos Digital, is a software development agency. We have over 20 employees that are software developers. We do brand new projects. We do staff augmentation. We have our own products and services that we sell. You're going to want to try to find a company like mine in order to get your foot in the door and to get on their radar and hopefully eventually join their roster, right? It's very competitive as juniors. So that's why my last step is like, hey, let's go do some freelancing. Let's get some paid work. Let's start to learn the ins and outs of what it's like to be in the workforce here, because it's not just the skills you have, it's also being part of the workforce, right? But seeking job opportunities or internships is going to be step number 9. And if you land that job, or if you land that, big project opportunity, you can check the box. You've done it. You've become a software developer. Now, granted, you might not be a senior software developer or a master software developer, but you are at that stage a qualified software developer, i.e., people are willing to pay you for your software development experience and services, and you're able to deliver them, right? So that's step number 9. Step number 10 is super important. Find a mentor, or I didn't type it here, but find a community to get plugged into, right? I wish I would have done this when I first started. I'm the kind of guy where I'm just like, I'm going to do everything myself. Like, I don't need any help. And that was a big mistake early on. I wish I would have buddied up with somebody who's like a senior dev. I could have learned a lot from that person and maybe shaved off some wasted time. Could have avoided some hard learning lessons. But I definitely recommend that you find yourself a mentor. If you are looking for a mentor, I'm willing to be that mentor for you. I've set up the NextDev community knowledge base, which should be referenced in this link in the description. But either way, I have some programs for you that you can join where I will mentor you on becoming a new software developer. I'll help you understand the problems that you're facing. I'll help you overcome those problems and guide you through my lens of experience. And I think I can provide a lot of value there. I've helped many people come from 0 to interns to junior devs to senior devs in like under 3 years, right? I've taken junior devs from just being like, I don't really know much, but I know what I learned from college, all the way to I'm a senior dev and I'm getting paid pretty well. And that happens like under 3 years. So I can help you in this area, but I hope this is super helpful. These are the 10 steps that I followed when I became a software developer, except I never went to a boot camp. I never went to college and I never went to a boot camp, but I wish I would have. If I could replay time, I would have done it that way. So those are the 10 steps. I hope this is pretty helpful. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section. I want to know what you think. There's a number of different ways that you could do this. There's many other things that you could do to become a software developer, but in my mind, these are the top 10 steps in logical order that I would follow, and I hope that's helpful to you. Thank you so much.